Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I sincerely appreciate your leadership as the chair of the African Subcommittee on this very important committee of the United States Congress to use this platform and your time and attention to build support for the atrocities going on in this part of the world. They may not be the greatest, most widespread atrocities, but they're atrocities nonetheless, and they've been brought to our attention in a very special and significant way through the voices of children. It's very unusual for children of the world. Maybe it's been done before in this way, I'm not sure. But this issue, with hundreds and millions of children around the world, led by a child himself, has brought these atrocities to our attention. And that in itself, Mr. Chairman, should be honored. We struggle to make democracy relevant to the children in our country. We struggle to make democracy make sense to people in the world who are not used to it. And it's moments like these that need to be captured and promoted when children not even able to vote can recognize truth when they see it, and if given an opportunity, will press and use the rights that we try to start teaching them in kindergarten, but by honoring their words in middle school and high school, we strengthen and make true what we say to them, not only as parents, but as senators. I was led to this by two children. One, my niece, Kelsey Cook, who's now married. Her husband is serving overseas. But when she was 14, she told me about a friend of hers that was going to school with her, Johannes Oberman, who was working for an organization that was trying to help the night walkers in Uganda. Of course, I had read about them and had been working with orphans in that country. And she said, "Aunt Mary, could you do something?" And I said, "Well, yes, I'll try." So I began work here with other senators, and then, as you know, traveled to Uganda myself and met the UNICEF director, Carol Bellamy, at the time. We tried to get to the northern part to actually see the night walkers, but when we were there, one of the priests who had been their great advocate, Episcopal priest, had been murdered by the Kony forces, and our State Department didn't allow us to go. But we came back, and you know that some of us have been working over the course of the time to help. I've stayed in touch with Invisible Children and the nonprofit that was created after the plea that Jacob said to Ben, who's here in the audience. He looked at Ben, and you saw it on the video. He said, "Ben, I'd rather die than live on an earth with no justice." And he's absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman. And the sad thing is there are millions and millions and millions of children and families living in places where there is no justice. And this might not be the greatest atrocity that ever occurred, but it is most certainly worth our time and worth our action. I don't know what the State Department said, but I hope they've stepped up their efforts. I don't know what the Defense Department has said. I hope they step up their efforts. And I hope that your committee and the work that we can do here will keep the focus on this tragedy, will stop this raging maniac of a terrorist who believes that he is being led by some higher spiritual calling, which of course is not related to any church or religion that you and I would be familiar with, but evidently there's some higher spiritual calling that empowers him to slice 5-year-olds in half in front of their mother and then drag the brother and sister into servitude. That allows children or forces children to kill their own fathers in front of their family by slicing them to pieces, and then terrorizes children. I've really never really truly in my life ever heard of such horrors. And the fact that all the governments of the world can't seem to catch him and to bring him to justice is a real puzzlement to me. But I'm going to turn the mic over to two people who are far more eloquent on this subject than I am, who have literally given their life for this cause. And with the Invisible Children, that's one of the greatest NGOs I've ever known, and they have my full and complete and undying loyalty to the work that they do to inspire children to act and respond, I want to introduce you to Jacob, who's been presented in the video. But at the age of 11, now Jacob is 21, he's studying to become a human rights lawyer. I am confident that he will be one of the greatest human rights lawyers ever to practice on the planet. One was one of the 41 youth taken from a Ugandan village by Joe Kony. Fortunately, Jacob escaped. He can tell you how, and his moving story is the emotional centerpiece of the video that you just saw. I want to also recognize Ms. Jolie Akot, who is the on-the-ground coordinator for Invisible Children. She is the former Ugandan country director. Now she's working in a more regional way because, as you know, we believe Joe Kony has left Uganda and is now terrorizing an area the size of France in the middle of a jungle with very little roads. But, you know, he can be caught if we would put our mind to it. And just by catching him and his few followers, this whole reign of terror for 25 years could come to an end. This is not, contrary to what some of the experts say, that complicated, in my opinion. Among her many qualifications, Jolie holds a degree in business administration, is experienced in program development and coordination and logistics. How she's managed to continue all of this work all of this time is beyond me. She's focused on all children, but particularly girls in this sub-region of the country. And I'll close with this. If we can't find and honor the voices of the children in our country, your daughters and my daughters, the second child was my own daughter, Mary Shannon Snellings, who came home from Easter break this year and said, "Mom, do you know Joe Kony?" And I said, "I know you don't think your mother knows much, but I do know Joe Kony." And we talked about it. She encouraged me to watch the video, which inspired me to re-energize myself. And so, Mr. Chairman, I thank you. Let us stay energized. Let us not have to rely on our children to shake our conscience to stay energized. And I turn it over to these two extraordinary people. And I thank again Invisible Children and the leaders that are here representing this extraordinary nonprofit and the work that they're doing to bring truth to the eyes of the world by the voices of very small children.